Today, our special guest is Taymour Miri. Taymour is an ICF Master Coach and Gallup Strengths Coach with more than 20 years of experience working with organizations in Europe, Middle East, and the US. Welcome to the Mindset Zone, Taymour.
Thank you very much, Anna. It's delighted to be here, and thank you for whoever's listening.
Yes, and I really have to start with this question because you do a so amazing work with strengths. And in our previous conversation, we were speaking about this, that is, what is strength-based mindset?
Yeah, I think the easiest way I can describe this is it's a philosophy, it's a mindset, it's a belief that all human beings are wired uniquely, and that unique wiring has an opportunity whereby, as a human being, we can get to know ourselves, and we call that our strengths. And by knowing ourselves, by being self-aware of those, we have a conscious, or better still, intentional way of addressing what we have for the circumstances that find us.
Love it, really love it. So you see the mindset as a core belief. And I love that as everybody's different, everybody has this unique wiring of that is important that we are aware of it, the knowing ourselves that is so old as Greek philosophy, at least. But it's the self-awareness that I'm always speaking about, the importance of being self-aware, in this case about this unique wiring that allow us to be agile and flexible, given life and professional circumstances, to be at our best in the moments that they are needed most.
Spot on.
And you have a great exercise that you sometimes do for people to experience the power of being on their strengths. Can you guide our listeners through it?
Sure, sure. So if you're driving, stop driving. Do not do this while you're driving.
Yes.
Uh, so this exercise requires you to grab a piece of paper or something you can write on. It could be a pad if you have a pen, kind of electric pen that you can use. The idea is that you're going to write a sentence. And the sentence you're going to write is, I love podcasts. Now, before you start, uh, if you're ready, so what I'd like you to do is to take the pen and put it into the hand that you don't normally write with. So it's not your dominant writing hand. And then write, I love podcasts. Now, for most of us, because I know some of you might have the ability to write with both hands, but I would assert that one hand has a slight edge over the other, even in that case. So as you're writing, what are you noticing? So typically you notice that you're going to have to take it a little bit slower. And then you notice that as you're writing, you're not writing as well as what you know you can write. And if I asked you to then go and write that sentence again with the same hand that you wrote the first time. Now, what happens typically is as you practice more, you will start to see improvements. But if you look at your performance when you're writing with your dominant hand and you concentrated in writing, I love podcasts, you'll probably write it once, twice, maybe three times, and you'll get it really neat, beautiful. Whereas with your left hand, I'm a dominant right hand. So if you're a right-hander, if you started with your left hand, what you'll find is going to take it a lot longer for you to get anything near what you wrote with your dominant hand. So this exercise is a very simple way of saying if your dominant hand are your dominant talents or the way you are wired naturally that makes you unique. Now, obviously, we have many talents. This is one example of it in writing. So if you wrote with your dominant hand, very quickly you'll become excellent if you focused and developed. And if you went with the non-dominant, which is a conditioning that a lot of us have learned over the years, that if we are not good at something, we must go and do that and become good at that too. And when we're not typically good at something, when we go to become good at it, it takes a long time. It takes a lot more effort. And generally, the results are not anywhere near excellence. So this is how I distinguish between the two.
I love this. And can I challenge you?
Sure.
Can I stress this concept? Because I think, yes, absolutely, we have this set of wiring, this set of talents that are nurture and nature together. That when we arrive to the workforce, we can display our strengths. And yes, we have always to keep learning, to keep improving, to keep growing. But the point of focus on our strengths, I agree. And at the same time, sometimes we have to be very creative on how we use this. So I want to put a concrete case. So imagine a leader in a company that maybe it doesn't need to be even a baby boomer, maybe is a generation X, Xer, but technology is not their thing. They understand the importance of it. They have the organization with all the technology, but they have somebody that takes care of that. And now everybody is speaking about artificial intelligence, this, artificial intelligence, that. And they go, oh my gosh, everything is running well. So there is not their strength learning new technology, but they are facing these circumstances that is pushing that organization, okay, at least to be aware of it and to learn how to do. So in a case like this for a leader, when how they can maneuver and navigate this set of circumstances.
Yeah, great example and a great scenario. So before we dive into this scenario, Anna, let's just step one step back and let's just look at what talent is from a perspective of how do we spot it? Okay. So there are assessments you can do to help you identify what your talents are. But here's a definition I like. It says talents are your innate, your autopilot, subconscious way of thinking, feeling, and behaving. So if you just take that sentence, as a coach or a team leader, what do? We ask questions. We ask questions to see who is sitting on the other side. Because what we want to do is we want to identify behind the who, what are their dominant muscles in an environment that they're going to work, or if they've come to see you about their personal life, irrespective of where it is. So I'm listening, I'm asking the question. So I may say, okay, the person is being challenged with artificial intelligence coming into the company. And the company is demanding that we embrace it and bring it into pretty much everything we've got. Okay, and so I ask, how do you feel about that? And I'm not talking about one person. If I have a team of 10 people, or if I have one client that's specifically kind of having an issue with this at work, I'm asking, how do you feel about that? And they may say, I hate it. I just, I'm not drawn towards technology. Technology and me just don't get on. Okay, so now I know how they feel. So, what do you do and what have you done in the past? So I'm talking about actions now. What have you done when you had to learn? Say you're mobile. Do you have a smartphone? Yes, I do. So what have you done when you first kind of got involved with that? So they'll talk about their behavior and what they were doing. So what were you thinking in that process? That first time you saw it, and then as the process went on, how did your thinking change? So all I'm doing is I am inviting them to really tap into what talents they have, because as they express themselves, they are telling me the characteristics that drives them. So talents are really those personality traits, right? That's what we're talking about. And they come out in the sense of how do I feel, how do I think, and what do I do, right? So when I listen, I'm listening for what is the characteristic that motivates, that drives that person. What do they typically have that they've used before and they've been successful? So I'm not asking about failure, I'm asking about success. A very clear focus on strength, because strength brings success. So I'm looking for successes, and they'll tell me how they became successful with their smartphone. And those successes are the talents they used in order to manage that. So what I'd like to do then is to help support them to use more of those and develop more of those. So um, that's that's the core of spotting talent and then assisting so that they work on that. So the dominant hand, if they repeat that, it'll become excellent quicker. Now, Anna, you mentioned one thing that kind of there's a flip side. So what if I was in a job that I hated sitting behind the computer? I loved being out and about, talking to everyone. Now, those are two talents. If I love being behind the computer, I'm a thinker. I've got certain characteristics, right? If I want to be out there, I'm social, I'm outgoing, another set of characteristics. Now you can have both, but what if one person was really one geared towards being out there as opposed to behind the computer? So what if their job demanded that, I don't know, 30% of their job, they had to be behind the computer to do reports and all that stuff? So here's the thing: life throws circumstances where you will find yourself that you don't actually want to do that thing, which means really your talents aren't at play, right? So you have to manage that. You can't ignore it, because then it's going to cause a problem. So the idea is, how do you focus on your strengths most of the time? And then if you are being challenged, how do you manage that? And your work, anyone at work, really, this is a beautiful formula for strength-based development. If you are at work every day and you're spending roughly about 60, 70, 80% of your time doing things where you're playing to your strengths, you are going to be super engaged. Your performance is going to be amazing. The flip side is you will have some challenges. If they're around 20, 30%, you'll manage them. And there are strategies to do that. Your manager's job
Yes.
is to look for that.
And I love this nuance and this, because you are speaking shows the experience that you have with working with real companies and real teams here. Because yeah, there is always this mix, and sometimes the issue is that you have that amazing doer that is doing, or they say maybe it's a salesperson that is really great in what they do, but they have to do the reports. But if it's within that 20, 30%, that part of the reports, they can learn strategies to be effective. Wonderful. But if their manager then starts to demand and change the balance, now inverts the equation, just 30% of interaction and 70% of computer, that will change the dynamic totally.
Burnout. That's the ultimate thing. It will lead to burnout. People leave companies because of that.
Yeah. And let's go to another example, because this is fascinating when we give concrete examples. So you have the manager or the team leader or the leader of the organization that now in this scenario, they love technology. They love new things. They are always, it's like, oh my gosh, we have to bring this. but their teams are a little bit not, they go, oh my, this is the flavor of the month kind of thing. How
Mm.
can this leader um, focus on their strengths, first of all, and then help their team focus on their strengths too, to make sure that the company is successful and have a great impact?
Yeah, another great scenario, Anna. I love these. So, uh, my first focus when I hear this is, what do I hear about the characteristics of this manager? So they love technology. Okay, loving technology is not a talent. So what is it? What is it that they love, and what other patterns are showing up? So what I heard was this manager is it's got a typical characteristic where they want to try new things and they want to always optimize and they want to maximize and increase productivity, and they're, sometimes they overdo it. It's a talent, right? So it shows up naturally. And so if they're not aware, their mind is telling them, oh, there's a new thing. I can do this different. Oh, we can increase. So as a team, sitting to listen to that, you get overwhelmed. You get lost. What is the priority here? So so let's just go back to basics. Talents are neutral, right? So what I mean by that, I mean we're born with or nurtured or a combination of two, but after a certain age, these are the dominant talents we have: the way we think, the way we behave, the way we feel. Now they're neutral. You can't blame them. What the thing is that we have a conscious mind and the ability to understand ourselves. So once we understand what talents we have and where it could go way off track and cause problems, we learn to draw it in and manage it. So if that particular manager, if they know that they're very quick at getting new ideas and wanting to implement, if they look at their team, all they have to do is just look at the faces of the team, right? And as they're talking, they'll know, the eyes are going to go up and, people are lost. So they need to understand that in every single circumstance, as human beings, if it's an important meeting, that manager needs to go into the meeting with an intentional way of managing that talent. That means he will go step by step, establish what the team is capable of, establish what the current situation is, and then come up with the idea and allow the team to ponder over it, talk about it, and do one thing at a time until the team's bought into it, and then they go to the next thing. Inside that manager, there is this activity going, like, I want to tell them all at the same time. He needs to control, he needs to manage those talents. The talents are neutral. It's us that makes them good or bad in any circumstance.
Again, love that. And is going back to the where you start. Is this, yes, is this unique wiring, nurturing of that wiring, and knowing ourselves. So that leader, they have to develop that self-awareness about their innate characteristics, and knowing when that they can get very energized with an idea, but sometimes they have to pace themselves in order to be effective, and learn how also to be aware of their environment and the strengths of their team, to be able to, they are almost, I think, a leader many times is like the master of orchestra, that you
Yeah.
have to bring the best out of each. You don't ask the pianist to play the violin or the violin to play the piano. Usually, when you are at that level, you have your instrument, you have your strength. So, but knowing that from your team, then you can make a beautiful composition come alive and really have an incredible impact out there in the world.
Absolutely right. And that example you mentioned about that manager in that particular meeting. Now, if they've gone in with the awareness that they have this tendency. So how do you convert that beautiful talent that they have in that particular circumstance where the team needs to buy in and be managed? How do they take that talent and then in that meeting become an effective manager? Which means that while they're conducting the meeting, they are at their strength. So how do we take that talent to a strength in the task of conducting a meeting?
Yes.
So the idea here is that talent is available. It's there, right? It's there. So if you sit behind that talent and say, right, I know in this meeting, I have to go one step at a time rather than rush in and give all the detail. I know that. Okay, I'm going to go consciously into this meeting like that. What else could become a strength of that talent? So, very simple formula is your talents invested become your strength. What do I mean? So, if that manager has learned coaching conversation skills, listening, asking, requesting, being affirmative, being acknowledging, if they've learned those skills, they're learnable. The talent's not learnable. The talent is there. So they've got the ability to go and learn some skills so that when they're in a meeting as a manager conducting it, what they do is they've developed themselves and the talent to be able to conduct the meeting. The meeting is the task. So when they go in there, they'll slow down because that's their minds. They've controlled the mindset because they're self-aware, and then they'll ask, right, how many of you are aware of this particular technology that's come into the public? And people say, no, I didn't know. Okay, so this one idea, guys, listen to this idea. Tell me what you think. And then he starts to have a conversation using his skills. So his talent is there functioning, but the investment in himself is where it's made the talent convert into a task that is done at excellence, which then
Love,
becomes strength.
love it. And the importance and how they can accelerate that or catalyze that working with a coach for themselves and to know their teams. That allows them to be able not just to guess, but have a much better idea where the talents are.
Absolutely right. Absolutely right. And by the way, we as human beings, we are complex, right? It's we have multiple talents, and talents come together to create our uniqueness. So the best example I have a chemistry background, so I kind of use this example. So if you look at oxygen as an element, right, oxygen has certain characteristics, right? It's a gas, right, and it's got certain benefits. Hydrogen is also a gas, and it's got certain benefits at room temperature, right, in normal conditions. Now, if you change the conditions and put these two things together, they become water, completely different, right? It's a liquid, has very different functionality. Talents work like that. So our combination of talents makes us unique. So if we understand what the talents are and how they combine to make us unique, then we've got this multiple, like it's got a multiple tool, right? So if I go to a meeting and that meeting, as a conductor of that meeting, I know a decision has to be made really fast. I am going to use the talent that drives decision making. It's a very different talent to the talent where I'm listening and holding back and building relationships, right? So it's about knowing what circumstances I'm going into, the self-awareness of what I've got, and then the development around it of how do I conduct this to get great results in any particular circumstance.
I love this because this is really how we can leverage all these, like we are using the word here, strength, the word talents, but how can we use all these to create a bigger impact while preventing burnout. That is my big thing, because I really believe that if we do the right combination of things, we can have our workforce engaged, energized, even in the flow of high performance, with the breaks, with the rests, with energy, and preventing being overextended or preventing being disengaged, and ultimately preventing the burnout.
It's absolutely spot on. There's data, plenty of data, worldwide. So it's not countries, your culture, or male, female. It's across the world. And what it says is, if you are playing to your talents, if you're doing tasks at work that make you feel strong, that word, right? If you feel strong doing a particular task, there are talents at play. You have dominant talents that are at play. That's why you feel strong. It's the way our mind is connected to, the way we think and how we feel. So the clue is, one of the biggest clues is, if you're doing the tasks that you are going into energized, while you're in it, you're energized. While you come out, you're energized and you're thinking about it, then your talents are at play. So what better way as a manager to ask people the simple question, how do you feel when you're doing that task? How do you feel about this task that I'm about to give you, the new task? Now, if the response is, oh, I'm excited, it sounds really good, right? That excitement comes from the fact that they think they're going to use their talents to do that task, right? And being in your talents while you're doing your task will lift your engagement. There is a direct relationship between playing to your strengths, being engaged at work, and performance. There's an absolute direct relationship, and we've got the data to support it, right? Higher profitability, higher whatever indicator you look at.
And you can ask that question to yourself when you are doing a task. How do I feel about this? Do I feel energized? And that is that development of the self-awareness. Whoa. So how can people learn more about you, about your work, about strengths, and about your organization, the International Coaching Education, ICE?
So Anna, we've got a website, icoachingeducation.com, coachingeducation.com. So if you go in there, we have a series of coaching programs that are accredited by International Coaching Federation. Every single program we do has the strength-based development incorporated in it. It's just part of the way we run those. And they're designed for team leaders, professionals, and those who want to start their coaching business and develop a unique business in coaching.
Love that. And I will make sure that I will put the link in the show notes. And I presume that to connect with you will be through LinkedIn or through the website.
Either way works.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you, Anna. Thank you, everybody, for listening.